The media activist who snapped the now iconic photo of that 5-year-old boy who'd just been pulled out from rubble in Aleppo in Syria has been accused of having links to terrorists in the region. Now, here's a video in which you can see the photographer taking that actual picture that made all the headlines. Then let's bring in this from the right. This is a photo the media activist has now deleted from his Facebook page. It was quickly pointed out by people online that in it, he's posing with the same terrorists who filmed themselves beheading a Palestinian child in July. Now, back then, their video caused great controversy as it turned out they were part of a group receiving support from the US. The photographer, for his part, responded to the allegations, claiming he didn't know the men were in any rebel militia. He also claims, in fact, that that executed child was not a child, was 19, although most reports say he was just 12. The head of the International Action Centre, Sarah Flounders, told us that the photographer is known, though, to support the rebels with whom he was pictured.
This photographer absolutely is known on Facebook, on YouTube, for continually posting images, pictures, applauding the Zenke militia, really a terrorist organization, well known even before this horrendous beheading of a Palestinian Syrian child. And he is not by any stretch of the imagination a human rights activist. He calls himself a media activist, but his role has been to applaud and support the terrorist activity in Syria. The way in which this photo is being used around the world is not people who have any sympathy for children.
Murat Gazdiev next and looks at how the media uses images of children to report on war.
Pictures like these speak to the human heart. They can be from anywhere in the world, showing children of any race, and they all evoke strong emotions. Why? Because youngsters are innocent. No matter the cause, the circumstances, they're completely blameless for what's happening around them. They shouldn't have to endure this. Omran is just one example. And yet, just a few kilometers from where he was pulled from the rubble, there was reportedly another boy who survived another bombing. The difference is that he and others were apparently hit by rebel shelling, and that's bad narrative.
The media dutifully carry water for their governments in order to present a very unbalanced black and white picture of a very complex war in order to justify the policies of their governments, in this case, continuing to support the terrorist groups in Syria.
I work in the media, and I know the power of images like these, and so does everyone else in the industry. These pictures are like a key to your heart. Without knowing what happened, why it happened, journalists can publish them and add a little bit of spin, just the right amount, so as not to cause skepticism, because seeing these, you're at your most emotional, vulnerable, and they can sell you their bias much easier.
Now, activists in Syria say 3 children have been killed during Russian airstrikes in Aleppo province. 5-year-old Omran Dakhnish was among those injured.
Russia signed on to the UN Security Council resolution that calls for a political transitional government process here so that Syrian children don't have to live in this kind of violence and this kind of uncertainty.
2 million people living in Aleppo. Different parts of the city are under siege, largely by the Syrian government and to some degree by the Russians. The house of 5-year-old Omran Dakhnish was hit.
Now that we've gotten over the poignant element, let's look at it logically, critically. The Syrian Observatory of Human Rights, putting aside its questionable credibility and claims of being pro-rebel, even so, just look at their numbers. Over the last 3 weeks, they allege that government attacks have killed 168 civilians. In the same time period, rebel shelling, on the other hand, has killed 165 civilians. Just let those numbers sink in. But I'll leave you with a question. Can any one child's suffering be valued as less than or more than another youngster's suffering just because the adults around them are fighting under different flags.